I'd like to show you what I've been spending the last several weeks working on, and that is a new historic roster for you to play with in the PS5 version of 2K21. So there's a new feature this year to upload 2K share scenarios through my NBA. Hadn't messed around with it much until here recently, and want to show you how to work through it today and how to get to my, hopefully you agree, beautiful creation of the 1992-93 NBA season. So let's first start with how do you download it, because that's kind of the most important piece. So 2K Share Scenarios is the third option here, so if you click it, it'll bring up an option to create a new save slot, so pick one of those. Unfortunately, the data here is not so great. It doesn't show you how many downloads each thing has, or how many updates. So I can't even see like how many people have downloaded my scenario, which isn't so awesome. But if it's not in the list, which this is mine, online ID yippee-ki-yay. If it's not in the list for you under hot or new, you can search for by pressing triangle. Content name 1992 would get you there. So you'll see a few different versions. Gus Mom, but that's not me. Somebody else has done it too. Nice. Uh, the most updated one is this one here that says 92-93 season realistic. I couldn't, for some reason, it won't let you like overwrite the ones you've already created. So I renamed it and it made it a new one, and I can't delete this one, I don't think. So go ahead and click on that realistic one, 92-93 season realistic. So what this does is it skips past all of the setup of the MyNBA, so where you choose like the rules and the customization that you can do this year. So I went ahead and did all of that to make it perfect for the 92-93 season. So we've got 27 teams. I updated all the rules for what was true back then. So we've got like the 10-second violation. We have the All-Star teams are split by conference, not through the new voting system. So things like that, I went ahead and changed the rules for. Certain things aren't going to be possible because they haven't added those rules to the game, but made it as true the real thing as possible. First thing you'll notice, so I'll show off some of the highlights here of what I've worked on. So first thing you notice are the logos. Like I like just looking at this screen and seeing all the old school logos here in one place. So try to use what was already on the game from a historic team aspect. Started with those, and then searched, downloaded some people's logos, and if I didn't find them, then I uploaded them myself. But so thanks to those that have already played around with that and shared their logos through the upload option. So moving on from logos, let's talk about rosters. So every team has at least 8 people from that year, and I'll point out that I did the rosters as of the start of the 92-93 season. That way, if people wanted to recreate like the mid-season trades, halfway through, then they could do that. Just wanted to have a clear starting point. And every team has at least 8 people, like I was saying. Most have 9 or 10, I would say. There are a few with 8 just because some teams had people that I just didn't feel like creating because they are kind of insignificant throughout their careers, but happened to play some good minutes during the season. So try to capture the people that actually added quite a bit of value to their teams. So I won't go through every team here, but starting with the Sixers here, who I think they are one with only 8 people. To fill out the roster, because if you don't have at least 13 people on a team when you enter a new MyNBA, they will automatically like sign free agents to the team, and I don't want that. So I have all these kind of bogus Most of them are David Williams, 40-year-old who is on a season-long suspension. So that way it counts as an active roster person, but I don't have to worry about them assigning someone. And they won't come into the game, or when you simulate or play, they won't be active because they're suspended. So that was my workaround for that. When it comes to roster, what I did was obviously make sure positions and like numbers were correct. So like Clarence Weatherspoon, this was his rookie year. He was number 30 his rookie year before he switched to 35. So I made sure that people have the right numbers, right positions, ages. Try to get everyone to the age they were that season, and then also years pro. So anyone that's tried to do a historic roster before knows that when you use historic players like Hersey Hawkins, for example, if you enter him into your MyNBA with 4 years pro, then when you start the next season, he'll jump up to 6. I don't know necessarily why. I think it's just kind of a glitch in the way they've programmed the historic players. So they add 2. So went through and made sure everybody was kind of -2 on that, so that when you start the season, they are actually their years pro. So if we look at Hersey, 4 years pro, if I go to his actual stats that are in here, he started in 88, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So starting 92, 93, once he plays a game or you simulate a game, it will show his years pro is 5, which would be correct at that point. So little things like that I tried to stay on top of. Everybody has their correct salary, which kind of doesn't matter so much because there's restrictions in when you're setting up the league to lower the salary cap. I think the lowest you can go is like 109, which is way, way higher than what the caps were back then. So if you happen to look at cap room, yeah, Sixers have 75.5 million. That's a lot. But anyway, it's kind of neat to see how much money people were making during this time. And, there's also a minimum you can make. I think it is is it 897? I think that's true. Yeah, I think that's as low as it goes. But back then there were people making like 300,000, but obviously we can't do that. Oh, what else? Attributes. So overalls, I adjusted attributes and tendencies by simulating through a few seasons and adjusting what was way off. Like obviously if people were shooting 10 threes a game, and if I look at stats on, I was using Basketball Reference, if you look at stats and see that someone shot like 0.6 threes per game, obviously they don't need to shoot 10 per game. So taking those tendencies down, trying to make it as realistic as possible. And that's what I've still been honing a bit, simulating some seasons going in, fidgeting with tendencies every now and then. And also creating some extra people every now and then as well. Like if I notice that, if I decide that 8 people just simply isn't enough for the Sixers team, I'll make a 9th, try to base it on who was the next most important guy. What else? So from here, I can also show off jerseys. So each team has the jersey they had from that season, from the 92-93 season. Some of the teams, thankfully, since when I started this, I actually used the all-time team rosters from the Create roster. Most of them actually had those default jerseys from the season that I needed, so thank you 2K for doing that. But for some of them, like the Bucks were one of them, these jerseys were not their defaults. I think it was like from the mid 80s that they were defaulting to. So I went ahead and created those, so at least in pictures you see them. I think there was only, I think the Hawks might have been the other team I needed to do. Yeah. So I created those jerseys. I think they look pretty good. I'm proud of them through the upload feature with logos and everything. So I'll just go through so you guys can see these. The Kings also created, but everyone else is looking good. Nuggets with their fun rainbow jerseys. All right. Bullets also had to create, because nothing with the bullets really on the game. So from here, also show if we go into rotations. So I guess we can play with the bullets first since I'm already on them. So I went ahead and made the minutes as realistic as I could, based on how many players I had for the team. So in this case, I only have 8 players on the bullets, so they didn't have enough people for me to give them their real minutes. So everybody was probably like, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes below what they are from a starting lineup perspective. But for the teams that have 9 or 10 people, those really got into their real minutes. So if I go, people are probably interested in the Bulls. So these are super close to what these players actually played that year. So the Bulls have 10 people, so it was nice to be able to do the minutes. And then not only did I do the minutes, because if you only do the minutes, sometimes they don't play what you list them as based on the positions they can play. They don't know like when to sub people in and out. So also did what my brother and I refer to as the rainbow screen. Some people probably dread this if you deal with it. I don't know, sometimes it's fun. In this case, I had some fun with it, trying to figure out who would play what positions and kind of when people would go in or out. Certainly can fix this. Like sometimes when I watch Hardwood Classics, you can figure out like, oh wow, Scottie Pippen didn't play the whole first quarter. Maybe, I don't know. That's probably not true. He probably played like the whole first quarter and a half. People played crazy minutes back then, but yeah. So everybody should play the amount of minutes you actually give them, because I went through and did this. The one thing that I'm kind of, well, yeah, one thing I'm not happy with is the fact that on 2K21 they removed the ability to edit coaches, like either in my NBA or even in the edit roster. On 2K20, if you ever went into staff, where is staff? Oh, contracts and staff. If you went into staff and you went in and clicked edit staff, there was an option to edit their name and their face. Well, that's not an option anymore. So when I created a roster on the last game, I could, create Phil Jackson and give him a face that looked somewhat like Phil Jackson, although we were a little limited on that. Um, and then give him like different attributes and stuff. So you can still change the attributes. That's one thing I haven't done. So obviously I didn't make this guy to try to be like Phil Jackson. I wouldn't have said he's a C minus offense, D defense. So that might be something I work on later. But I'm hoping that with an update, 2K will give us the ability to edit coaches again. With that said, whatever coaches are on the game that actually still coached back in 1992-93, I did assign them to the teams they were with. Let me see if I can find Quinn Snyder, for example, was an assistant coach at the Clippers that year before he came back to the NBA here more recently, coach of the Jazz. So, like, I did fill in people where I could. There aren't very many people. There is one random historic coach, and that is the legend George Karl, who's on the game. I just happened to notice that, like looking through the rosters, he's the coach of the historic Sonics, and maybe even the historic Nuggets that are on the game too. So thankfully we got him. We even have Terry Stotts, who was one of his assistants that year. So made that kind of just the best of what I could do with what we have right now. What else do we want to see? I didn't. One of the next things I might do is create a 1993 draft class. I haven't looked to see if anyone else has already done that. That'd be great if someone's already working on it. But I just downloaded the 93 draft class that's on the game, which has a limited number of people and some fake people that are way too good, like good old D Starks. But at least that way you can have some fun with scouting some of the real people. And one of the things I can show you is like if you're interested. So, oh, I can't see the rookies yet, not until I simulate a game. But it is kind of neat. Like it once you simulate through some games, see their stats and see how close some of them get. Like I simulated through the last one I was looking at the Hornets, for example, like the people did so close to what they actually did. And I know that's a team that's already on the game, the 92-93 Hornets. But, I've honed their tendencies and their attributes to where they actually are doing what they really did back then, and that's just satisfying to see. Whereas some people I'm having a lot more trouble with, like Glenn Rice, for example, no matter what I do, he will shoot a ridiculous amount of 3-pointers. I've taken his tendency down and down, but it's getting to the point where it's kind of crazy. Like I don't want him to shoot 9 3-pointers a game or whatever it's at now. I forget what he's supposed to be at, but it's definitely not 9. I think Steve Smith's similar. When it gets to the point where players, like whatever I do with tendencies to players isn't working enough, I'll look at like the team strategy in the game plan. So actually, it's a good idea to look at the Heat, because if I have them at like shoot at will, that might be part of the problem. So their average tempo, but their get shooters open. So that might be part of it. Like I could either try to slow their tempo or change their offensive focus to neutral or something. Like that's something I could play with. But I'm curious to hear any of you guys that watch this, what you're looking for. If you happen to use this and simulate through and you find some gaps, like some people that are doing things that they obviously shouldn't be doing, like centers that are shooting 35% from the field. Like there are quite a few of those based on what 2K has attributes and tendencies of historic players. So I've had to change a lot of that. But I'm sure there are some things I haven't caught, and that's where I'm hoping, you guys that download it and play around with it, have some fun with it, but also give some feedback on what I can update or anything you want me to change or add. Like I said, I'll keep looking for ways to make this even more realistic, whether it be adding players in, things like that. I just remembered one very key thing that some of you may be wondering about, because I showed the jerseys, but I didn't show the courts. So some courts are already on the game, so it's just a matter of getting them into the team. So if I go to relocation, arena, so like the Heat, this court is on the game, Miami Arena, so here it is, it's beautiful. The only thing I did was I gave all of them their actual names. So I think before this was called Heat Arena, which is kind of funny since it says Miami Arena on the court, but they didn't name it that. And then tried to give the arena that's closest to the capacity of where they played. So Miami Arena was a pretty small venue at that point. And then I also changed the scores table to what was closest to what they had at that time. And as you can see, some nice retro advertisements going on that I added to each court. So the Heat, yeah, that one's already on the game, so not as exciting. But what's one that I did create? The Sixers I'm kind of proud of. Or the Clippers. We'll start with the Sixers. So Sixers, I gave them the good old spectrum. So the nice little color wheel there in the center. Found a font that was kind of close to it. We're kind of restricted on where we can place logos on the court. So the 76ers logos are supposed to be outside the 3-point line, but didn't really feel like going through the hassle of trying to fit those into what's supposed to be a text location. So that's a good one. An example of something I decided not to go through with. So the Hawks, the Omni that they played at back then, the 85-86 Hawks have this court, and I decided to go ahead and stay with that. So in real life, opposite of those Hawks symbols near midcourt, they had Omni symbols, but I decided not to go through. That might be something I go through and add later on. It was just not a priority since there was something so close to reality already on the game. I decided to take advantage of that rather than spending my time creating it. Clippers, I'll just show another one. You guys can take a look at this too, but some of these arenas I just totally forgot that this is how they looked back then. Kind of crazy how things have changed. For the most part, logos were like super small at center court, versus now I feel like the logos go like almost from 3-point line to 3-point line. It's not as exciting when people shoot from the logo anymore. Although everybody does it now. Um, what else? I know there's more that I want to show you guys. Showed the another small thing, but a key thing. If you play with historic rosters, you notice that everybody, okay, not everybody, with the exception of like Michael Jordan and Shaq and maybe Penny. Like, well, Penny's not even in this because he's not drafted yet. But people that had iconic shoes, everyone except those have 2K shoes, like those super boring white shoes that say 2K on the side. Um, I went through and gave everyone more realistic shoes. Obviously, people weren't wearing 2K shoes. If certainly not back then. I'm not sure if anyone does in real life right now. Um, so everyone got some shoe, but I kind of used sort of basic ones. So this is one of probably 4 or 5 different shoes that I went through and used. But it looks nice on the court because you don't see 2K on everyone's feet. And most teams, I think back then, had uniform shoes. Like every player on the team wore like the same type of shoe. I know it's definitely not like that anymore. Um, so not everyone has the same shoes, but it's kind of from the same pool of shoes. Nothing too exotic. And then I tried to go through based on like pictures I could find on Google what accessories people had during that year. So if people had elbow pads or knee pads or wore shorts underneath, like tried to give everyone that. Oh, been looking at Glen Rice a lot. I think that might be all I want to show. If I add anything or change anything, I'll probably upload another video just to update you all, but certainly looking forward to seeing what interests you guys have in it. Hopefully you have some fun with it. I know I have been and look forward to playing more with it. I feel like I've been uh, creating and simulating so much, I haven't had a chance to really just enjoy playing some games with these cool courts, jerseys, and the old school players. So uh, enjoy, guys. Signing off for now. Hit a like, hit a subscribe. Certainly appreciate it. See ya.